Hello there. So we are ready to get started on our next project using our Acufil program in our 15,000 class. Now, what I'm starting off by looking at is this pillow that I have sent a picture of to you all, I think probably about a month and a half ago. And I sent it to you because when I came across it, I thought that it was really a great example of using the Acufil program. You can see in the pillow here that they just filled up a piece of dark fabric using a variegated thread and a stipple fill. And then the creator of it added in some applique designs on top of it. So what I liked about this was that it just to me seemed like it was a unique way of using the Acufil tool. What I'm going to suggest that we all do for this month's project is find a pillow in your house. Or maybe it will be something that you might not want to make into a pillow, but maybe you'll want to do a wall hanging or something of that sort. But using this general same idea, filling up a piece of background fabric with a stipple fill, and then doing some embroidery of some sort on top of it. Let me show you a couple of examples of things that I thought could be applied to this same technique. This is a cute little sampler that Terry made using built-in designs from her 15,000 machine, and she stitched it out on this pretty piece of a nubby kind of linen. Very nice sampler. What I thought about this was that maybe what could have been done here as some inspiration would be to first of all prepare the background fabric with a stipple fill, and then come back along inside of here and do your embroideries on top of it. Let me show you another example of an idea also. This is a wall hanging that I started on. This is the full deal here. Kind of a junky looking sampler of different hearts and some different kinds of embroidery techniques. This was a design collection that I bought from, the designer is called Louisa Meyer, and she has a whole collection of things that have embroidered tassels on them and some little embroidered fringy I guess little bows, I guess is what those are. And what I did with this project is that I had some leftover pieces of white on white fabrics, and I just sewed them together. And then I just started doing embroideries on here. I don't know that I had a real organized, planned layout. I just started using some of the designs that I had. I created some freestanding lace hearts. This is a freestanding lace heart. There's one here, some up here. Some of these are crocheted pieces that I've made in the past. And basically in general, some decorative stitches are covering up some of these seam lines. All of the background has been quilted just using straight line quilting. The reason I'm showing it to you is, again, it's kind of a takeoff on the project that Terry did with her little sampler. Mine pretty much had a theme of the hearts. And I thought, this could be an idea of something that maybe we would want to fill in a big background with some stipple fill, and then do a bunch of embroideries and odds and ends kind of thing, just as a, sample of things of embroidery and quilting and all of that. So just some jumping off points, okay, to get our imaginations going. This here is the layout of the design that I am duplicating based on the pillow. So what you can see here, if you look closely at my picture, this is a picture that I could actually create and save out of my digitizing software. If you look closely, you're going to see this vertical red dotted line and a horizontal dotted line. That designates my 4 pieces of Acufil fill pattern that I created in Horizon Link Suite Acufil. All right, so one of the questions that has come up is, couldn't we do our Acufil stipple filling in our digitizing software? Well, yes, you can. But there's going to be a couple of differences between doing it in Acufil program as opposed to doing it in our digitizing program. Basically, every digitizing program that's represented by the members of our class, which basically is MBX, Hatch, and PEP, will create a stipple-filled background. The nice thing about being able to do it in your digitizing software is that you have more control over the actual size of the loops of a stipple fill. in the Acufil program and Horizon Link Suite, it's all going to be always the same length of stitches and the same spacing. This is called your loop spacing. All right, so digitizing software is going to be a little bit more sophisticated than the Acufil program so far as the size and the loop spacing of your fill pattern. The nice thing about the Acufil program is that it plans this out so that when these hoopings are all stitched out one beside another, the way that the loop spacing is created is that you cannot tell if this is hooped nicely. You can't really tell where one section ends and the next section begins. All right, so let me just zoom in on this, and you're going to see here, this is the upper left-hand quadrant. You're going to see this little section right in here is identical to this little section in its neighbor to the right, the upper right quadrant. Same little duplication happens right down here in the lower left quadrant. So basically what's happening is the top of the hoop is always the top of the hoop. And when you hoop them and stitch them always with the top facing the top of the hoop, you're going to get this overall effect. All right. Cannot guarantee that the same thing is going to happen when you create that same block of stipple fill over in a digitizing program. So that would be one reason why you might want to do it here in the Acufil. We'll explore looking at some Acufil created in digitizing programs in a little while. But basically, this is what I did. So I thought that I would copy that design from the original pillow. Let's just take a look at it once again. I created an applique design. I think the applique design is somewhere in here. Well, maybe it didn't save it. But basically what I did is I just played around with it, okay? I digitized it myself. This is my block for my pillow. And I just popped it on here and I played a little bit around with, resizing this applique design. Here I used another design that I digitized for us in class. That was that quilt block. This is the original size of the quilt block on my background here. Here I resized it to just make it a little bit more proportional. I actually think I'm going to stitch this out because I kind of like the way that that looks. Here is the same heart applique, this time duplicated on a bigger fill of a background. I think I did this one as an 18-inch fill background. All right, so just to give us some ideas. Now, one of the things that we would want to consider when we are working with a project similar to this is that we do need to have whatever we are stitching on top of this stipple fill to be of a substantial nature. All right, so this is an applique design, as we can see, and we've got this light filled background with a substantial project on top of it. If it was Terry's project, for example, some of these motifs would work really well on a stipple fill background and others would not work so well. They would just absolutely get lost. Like this little quilting motif and this quilting motif and maybe even this little bird. All might be a little bit too delicate of a design to put on top of that stipple fill if the stipple fill was a high contrast between the color of the threads and the color of the background fabric. So you have to consider some things like that as you're planning out a project similar to this. Now, if we had done the stipple fill basically matching the color of the fabric on the background, it would be more of a textural effect. And, some of these lighter fill designs done with a high contrast color of thread might work out quite nicely. Just kind of all depends. All right, so how are we going to create that stipple fill in our Horizon Link Suite program? Well, you're going to go into your start page. I think I'm going to have to start all over on this one because I'm in embroidery edit and that's not where I wanted to be. Let's go to Acufil tool. This is just a quick little rundown on how we do this. So remember again, you start off either in your inches or metric, whichever you prefer, by selecting it in the upper applications button. I'm going for inches. The little pillow that I'm going to work on is one that I have a couple of little 12-inch cushions in my living room that I change the covers out on fairly frequently, probably at least 2 or 3 times a year. I have a seasonal switch on them. So I would recommend, that you go around in your home and find either a pillow or a spot on the wall where you might want to do a seasonal decorative item. In my case, it's going to be my 12-inch pillow. For you, it might be an 18-inch pillow, or maybe an 18 by 24-inch space on the wall that you want to do an applique sampler on, or some such idea. Okay, but you basically get the idea of what I'm telling you, right? You're going to start with your editing size of your overall project. Since my pillow is a 12-inch pillow, I want to fill up an area of fabric that's about 13.5 inches, because I want my stipple fill to be in my seam allowance as I sew my pillow together. So I want it to be oversized. I don't want it just to be a 12-inch. I will say okay. And here comes my area here so we can take a look at it. Oop, when I did that, that actually resized the whole thing. Let's undo. Let's go previous. Is it going to let me? Nope. I'm going to have to start all over again. Oh, great. Acufil 13.5. Should have known better than that, right? Here we go, 13.5, and I can say okay. All right, so there's my layout. It's going to be 4 hoopings. If I had really wanted to see that bigger, I could have done the zoom in rather than trying to drag that. That would have been the better route rather than having to redo. Sorry about that. Okay, so there's my layout. 4 hoopings, 2 by 2. Each size is about 6.69 inches. All right, so next button. Here's what my fill looks like. And then I can write this design. Now, the neat thing about writing this design is it is going to save it as a JPX file here. We can choose where to save it to. I've already created a folder on my USB called Pillow. And this is my design. I've already done this once before. So I'm just going to say again, I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it my 13.5-inch design, and I'm going to say okay. So it's going to want to overwrite the one that I created just a little maybe yesterday or earlier. Do I want to replace it? And the answer is yes. So it is a JPX file. That's wonderful for us, because now what we can do, I'm going to minimize my Horizon Link program, is we can open that JPX file up in our PEP program. All right, so 3 of us in this class have this program here. We're going to open a file. We're going to make sure that the file of types here, if you wanted to only look for those file types that we're looking at right now, we could make sure that there is that JPX file has been selected. My 13.5 design is actually over on my USB stick, so I'll have to go over to this PC and find my USB. Just quickly find it over here in my pillow folder. There it is, and I will open it. And there it has popped into my screen, and it's ready to do a little bit of digitizing magic with it. So I will select it. Okay, and one of the things that I wanted to do there is showing you that in the program here, one of the things you're going to want to make sure that we do is to group this entire object. As you can see that I just clicked on a little section and my entire stipple fill has not been selected. So I'm just going to come to all items here. I will right click on it and I will group it. So it is now one big chunk. The next thing I'm going to use is the tool here that's called the repeat tool. And when I open this up, the program is going to ask me how many repeats of the pattern that I want. And I do know that for my purposes, because I'm taking this information from when I was over in Acufil, I'm going to need 2 hoopings across and 2 hoopings down. So I will put in those numbers right there. The next thing that you need to pay attention to is this horizontal and vertical distance. So this is the distance between each one of these sections. Now, if you look at the window here, you kind of, if you stand back and look at this, you kind of can see where the little sections butt up against one another. So if you really wanted to play with this a little tiny bit, you probably could. If I wanted to, this is in inches right now, maybe I would want it to be 0.1 inches apart. Let's just see what happens when I do that, because I'm pretty sure I want to keep it at 0, but I'm experimenting here. And let's apply it. All right, so what did I get? don't see that I see a real, it might be a little bit better of a fill pattern. I don't know, we could experiment with it. That's just 1/10 of an inch apart. And I can say okay, and here is my stipple fill now. So I can see, that I've got my 4 pieces over here in my items, section 1, 2, 3, and 4. I kind of like the spacing there. I might have experimented with leaving it at 0, but you get the idea. All right, so what we've got now is able to see our entire layout. And now you're going to be able to pop some designs in here and begin to play with, maybe what you might want to do with your project. I'm just going to open up this butterfly because it just happens to be here. It's a little tiny butterfly. If I grab it by the upper corner and just enlarge it quite a bit, and positioned it somewhere here on my stipple fill background, you could get the idea of how you might want to start playing with some designs here in your PEP program to work along with that stipple fill that we created over in Acufil and had saved as a JPX. All right, so that's how we do that here in PEP. Let's minimize this program and open up our Hatch program. You can see that I've already got that same JPX file opened up here. So for those of us that are using Hatch or the later versions of MBX program, we can open up the JPX files here as well. We've talked about that also in previous classes. So this is how we duplicate this one in this program. Select your object, and one of the toolboxes that we have in Hatch is called Create Layouts. So when we open this one up, we've got all kinds of different ways here of duplicating a given object to make it duplicate in different kinds of circumstances. The one we're going to use here is also called an array tool. When I turn this on, I want you to notice what happens to the screen. So I'm just going to zoom out just a tiny bit so you can see this. As soon as I click on copy array, you're going to see that it does copy it. And it copies it according to what I have going up here in this toolbar. So this is where in this program I designate my rows and my columns. I've already got it set up to do it as a 2 by 2. You're going to notice on the screen that everything is snugged up against itself. And the upper three new pieces that have been duplicated here are still kind of grayed out, which means that I can either accept it as it is by hitting my enter button, which I have now done, and I'm going to zoom out, and you're going to see that everything is created right there next to one another. The other thing that I could have done here is I'm going to do an undo, is that when I select this and I hit my copy array, if I choose to move my mouse around on my screen, I could actually then play with the spacing of these objects. So just like over in PEP, where I could tell it numerically how far apart I wanted my objects, I could also do something similar here, either by making them a little bit closer together or a little bit further apart, just by using my mouse to do that rather than just hitting the enter button. All right, so 2 different ways of doing it. This one here, you can see here that you can see a distinct demarcation, so to me, the preferable way would have been to do it the first. So I'm just going to do it real quickly. Copy array. Everything is snugged up against each other. Hit the enter button, and there it is. So now what we have on our screen in our digitizing program is, again, that entire filled area that we can then, I'm going to just center this to the work area, so it's centered in my hoop, that then we can start popping our designs onto. Okay, so that's how we can get a feel for, planning out our layouts for our projects. So, okay, one of the things that, again, I'm just going to mention to you is that when you start popping designs onto here, let's just say, for example, I'm going to open up, I don't even know what I'm going to find. I'm just going to look real quickly in my computer, in my embroidery folder, and let's just say I'm going to look for, I don't know, I'm just going to look for something here. I don't have anything that's don't want to waste a lot of time, but you know, maybe a design like this. Okay, this little caterpillar, let's open it up and put that on there. Oh, let's save it. I opened it in a new screen. So let's group it, cut it. Let's go back to my Acufil, paste her on there. Okay, so you can see that that was just a little light-filled caterpillar. You can see that that doesn't work on that background, right? You would never see that unless you really did a lot of work with your colors on here. Let's go ahead and insert a different kind of a design. Maybe this time also in that same folder of autumn designs, I might find something that would work there. Let's just say there's some flowers here maybe that, let's just open that design up. See that one? That one there, even though it's, you know, it's got a substantial filled background. So, you know, just playing with designs on a busy background like this is going to be very, very crucial. So the next thing I'm going to do here in my hacked program is I'm going to actually digitize a background piece of fill. So I'm going to get a new page. I'm going to digitize a rectangle or square, and I'm just going to draw a big old square. It automatically comes up as a filled pattern, but what I'm going to do is just select it, and in my toolbar I'm going to choose a stipple single run. It filled it all in. One of the things that I can do here, and I don't even know the size of this design, 60, it's about 120 millimeters. Once I've selected it here, I can change my loop spacing. So here it defaulted at about a 7. Let's take it down to a 3 millimeter loop spacing. We can see that we've got a really busy filled up background here. All right, so this is what I was trying to talk about a little while ago, all right, that in Acufil, it designed all of these little areas so that they're going to snug up against one another really nicely. I'm not sure the same thing is going to happen here with this stipple fill, but let's try it and see what happens, okay? So it is selected already, and I can come over to my layout toolbar, and I can use my array tool, and let's see what happens. Oh, I guess I need to select it. Oh, let's zoom out a little bit. Probably I was too close in. I'm going to escape. So let's select it again, copy array, and hit enter. So there they are, and you can see the difference, right? Let's turn all of these into a brighter color. Maybe I'll change every other color into something different. Turn that one into a red also. So if I look at this, you know, and we're not looking at color, we're just looking at the way that these designs work with one another along these little intersections. We're going to see what a difference, right? Let's turn everything into red. That way it just kind of looks really nice and vivid. You don't get that same effect here of designs that interlock nicely like we did with this one over here. Rid of that. Let's put this in the center just to kind of give ourselves an idea. So see this one here, made in Acufil. You can't really see where your intersections are at. Here we've got a really nice piece of fill pattern also, but again, very distinct divisions between the little elements. Okay, so this is purely in this situation right now, what I'm demonstrating is really just a place where we can then begin to work on our layout for what kind of designs we might want to place over our Acufil fill pattern. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover in this video. I wanted to talk a little bit about planning out a project, what kind of designs we're going to look at as we start looking at covering up an Acufil background with some decorative motifs, you know, and just giving us some different inspiration there. The next thing we did is that we actually looked at our Horizon Link Suite program in our Acufil to actually plan out some Acufil backgrounds based on the size of the design that we want to make. And then I showed you how over in our PEP program, we could use the Arrange tool that was here, or this Repeat tool, I guess is what it's called here, to create that stipple fill background so that we can get a feel for our what kind of designs we might want to pop on there. In Hatch, I showed you once again how that same sort of a layout would be done using the JPX file as compared to creating one in the digitizing software. So I hope all of that is helpful to you all, and I'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks for watching.